eyes know without you I go psycho. You said you love me.
Hello, and welcome to the Women of Wealth show. Right now, today, I have a special guest. Right now, I see that my show got a little hot in regards to professional cuddlers. So I decided to go out and find a real professional. So right now, without further ado, I would like Keely to introduce herself, and I'm going to kind of go over some questions with her. But tell me a little bit about yourself and how did you start being a professional cuddler? And before you answer that, if you have any questions, the number is 708-223-8953. And this is the Women of Wealth show on Intellectual Radio. Go ahead, Keely.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. So yeah, my name is Keely. I run a private practice, a cuddle therapy private practice called Chicago Cuddle Therapy.
Okay.
I have been doing this for over 6 years.
Okay.
And it's my full-time career. It's how I make my living. And it sounds really cheesy, but it feels like my life's purpose. It's like the thing I was put here to do. That's the short version of it.
Right now, you also sent me something that you're an educator. You have a 501c3. Can you kind of explain that a little bit? How can you have a 501c3 in regards to cuddling?
Yeah, so the 501c3 is from Cuddle Party. There's a organization called Cuddle Party. I am certified to facilitate those events. So just being super clear, it is not my personal 501c3, but that non-for-profit organization trains people on how to have cuddle party workshops. And these workshops teach people about boundaries, consent, communication tools, so that they can access platonic touch in healthy, safe ways.
Okay, explain that. So
Yeah.
I thought I knew how to touch someone.
Mhm.
So what do you mean you're teaching me how to have healthy boundaries? Is there a way that I'm supposed to touch someone?
So the part of that is about communication, right? There's lots of ways in which our culture doesn't set us up for success in how we're communicating consent, how we're communicating our own boundaries. So the workshop part of these events helps you do that. It'll teach you, for some people, saying no is uncomfortable or it's awkward or they're not quite sure what to say. So we practice it. We give you scripts. You can practice this.
So teach me how to say no. Give me an example if to say no to someone.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a really quick exercise. It's called the no exercise. I'm going to make a request. Your job is to say no, and then I'm going to respond. Okay. May I take your microphone away from you?
No.
Thank you for taking care of yourself. I appreciate you saying that. The thing that has happened just there, and what we do in the workshop, is we take a pause. And for the person who said no, feel what that feels like in your body. Did your face get hot? Did your heart rate increase a little bit? Did your shoulders tense? Did you clench your jaw? What do you notice in your body that happened when you said no, even though it was scripted? And when people get a chance to understand, when I say no to someone, my body does this, this, and this, then they can identify when saying no is difficult in other times, right? So that's one thing that happens. It's like we're practicing, okay, what does that feel like? How do you identify what goes on in your body when you say no? The other part of that is the response back of saying thank you. It's really solidify that when you hear a no, when I hear a no from you, you're giving me a gift. You're telling me, you're sharing your honesty with me. I know this was an exercise, right? But it helps reframe that no doesn't have to feel like rejection to me. What it can actually feel like is closer connection, because now if I know I can't do that, then we can find out the things that we can do to connect and we can actually get closer. So that's one of the hour-long things in the workshop that we do.
How much do you charge to teach me how to say no?
In the group workshops, ticket sales are like $35, $30, somewhere in there. And then one-on-one individual sessions, which range from people who are trying to have symptom relief from depression and anxiety, people who are trying to work through challenging or traumatic experiences around touch, people who are in relationship transitions, who do not want a new relationship because that would be overwhelming or uncomfortable. So there's all reasons to do an individual session, and those are $200 an hour for me.
Okay, 200 an hour.
Yeah.
So if let's just say I broke up with someone,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure because I didn't trust him. So now I need to come to you, and you're going to teach me how to trust again.
I could, yeah. So that could be part of what goes on, but the key thing there is you will have access to that comfort, that nurturing care of platonic touch while you heal from the first relationship, so that you're not going out into the dating field in something that we call touch deprivation. When you're going out in the dating field from a place of like touch deprivation, then you're coming from a place of like you're like a little bit more desperate. You're going to maybe make some decisions out in the dating world that are trying to get that touch need met, and so you're going to be maybe more hasty in those decisions, or a little less grounded and thought out. And so you get this kind of this need met in a safe container, in a safe way. Then you can go out into the dating world and be like, oh no, I know I'm not going to like, it's not going to be a year before I have anyone I can hug again. I know I'm going to get that. So when I make the decisions in the dating world, it can be from a much more grounded, fully resourced place.
So do you think that we really, I know we miss touch.
Yes.
And you feel like we really do not know how to touch each other?
That's a great question. And I think that human beings do have, like when we're little, imagine like little kids, right? If you're we're all about to go to some family gatherings coming up, right? Little kids know how to touch each other, and sometimes to other people's detriment, right? But they know it feels good. They're like, oh, have you ever had a little kid just like come up and hug your leg, right? Like, because they just wanted to hug right then. As we get older, we get all different kinds of messages from society, from the environments that we're in, about why different kinds of touch is bad, or we should feel shame around it, or and we, to the benefit of us, do learn appropriate scenarios and inappropriate scenarios to like just someone. Like you need to ask, you need to make sure you get consent, but we do lose a little bit of that innate ability to just really get in touch with what we want. And with regards to physical touch.
So how do I ask for what? So you're going to teach me how to ask for what I want without going overboard, without being desperate.
Yeah.
And you're going to charge me $200 an hour.
Yep. Yeah.
To show me actually just giving me self-esteem techniques to show me how to be a better me.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. And how to be, this word is kind of it's a buzzword a lot, but how to be a more embodied you. Because I think a lot of the times with like work and job and family, and we get so much in our head, right? I think our society, our culture is like, okay, you gotta go, 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 go. You gotta produce, you gotta go get another coffee, go get, do this, do this. And we get so much in our head that I think a lot of times, or it's at least a common problem that I see, is we aren't connected to our bodies and like the actual physical sensations in our bodies.
Give me a little more explanation. I'm not connected because sometimes I understand you go to work, you're just going through the motions.
Right.
What do you mean that I'm not connected to me?
Well, you might be, right? You might be one up on a lot of my clients. I don't know. But what I see a lot of the time is that when we're so, either if we have anxiety or lots of things run in our heads, I don't know. There's so many people who have like their mind races. Right? Have you ever had that feeling where like you're trying to go to sleep and your mind,
the racing thoughts? Yes.
Yes, I have that too.
I tell people to keep a notebook by the bed and take it out of your head and remove it from your head and maybe write it down. Deal with it tomorrow. So what do you suggest?
Excellent technique. No, there's tools in the toolkit, right? That is a phenomenal one. One thing I might also add is do some what's called box breathing, or you add some breathing techniques. And I see a lot of, and I personally used to do this as well, eye rolls. When people are like, ugh, breathing techniques, you can go shove those breathing techniques somewhere. And I have so much empathy for that, because I am / was one of those people. But what we're doing when we're controlling how we breathe is we're actually gaming our parasympathetic nervous system by taking big inhales but slow exhales.
Give me an example.
Yeah. So a big inhale would be for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale for a count of 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When we do that 3 or 4 times, our parasympathetic nervous system slows down. Our heart rate will decrease. Our blood pressure will decrease. Our body will sync up to a more relaxed state. And so breathing is just one really quick example of how to do that. There's also something that you can do called a body scan. And you start at one end of your body, either your toes or your head, and you go, if you start at your toes, then you go to your feet, then your ankles, then your legs, then your knees, and you just focus on what are the sensations in my body? Do I feel temperature? Do I feel the fabric of my clothes? And what all that does is it helps you really ground in bring your body online with your mind. You're helping the two things match up together. Yeah, and when we are able to match them together, we have a whole lot more control over how we're feeling.
Okay, I have a question. Now, right now, what is the average client? Will I call them a client or a customer? What would I call them? A client?
Client, yeah.
What's the average client you get? So I know, me just looking it up, you have PTSD, you have trauma, you may have different type of rapes, you have people that have lost someone.
Grief, yeah.
What is your average client? And of course, the money is always there. How much do you charge a client? And what is the average trauma that you do get? Because a lot of people don't believe in a professional cuddler.
Right.
They said that it was on the line of prostitution. It was on the line that you're going to somebody to go get touched by someone. And if you're married or have a partner, that's considered cheating in their eyes. What do you think? I know I've asked you like three questions all in one.
The easiest one to answer is maybe the last one. So I'll start there. If someone is married and they have an agreement with their spouse that if they touch someone else in any kind of a way that's cheating, then I can't have it. I don't have any say over their relationship. If that's how they define cheating in their relationship, then that's what it looks like for them. And I believe that every person should have the right to have a conversation with their partner and decide what that looks like for themselves. Some people would say that it wouldn't be cheating. I consider what I do a form of healthcare. It is an extended form. It's a type of therapy. But I do want to be very clear. I'm not a licensed counselor or a marriage and family therapist. My certifications are different. It's like you wouldn't think that a massage therapist or an occupational therapist was a licensed counselor, right? Because it's just they're different jobs. So, but they're extensions of healthcare. So what I do is I give people access to platonic touch to increase their levels of oxytocin in their body, help boost their immune system, help decrease heart rate, decrease blood pressure. It activates the part of our brains that help us feel connected and in community, and often those align with our sense of safety and sense of self and sense of empowerment. So as someone who considers this an extension of healthcare, I also want people to have access to this. I don't want them to create unhealthy, toxic, or challenging dynamics in their life by coming to me, but I want them to have access to healthcare. Does that make sense?
Now, what do you consider a platonic touch?
Yeah, I love that you asked that, because that is a subjective experience. So I have a code of conduct, and Cuddlist is one of the companies that I work with, and they have a code of conduct that's really readily available on their website. Things like what to wear, areas we are allowed to touch, areas we're not allowed to touch. There's no, and some people this makes them uncomfortable, but there's no saliva exchange. And the reason why it's worded that way, the reason why it's really explicit, is because if we just said there's no kissing, well, a kiss on the forehead, if you kiss like a little kid on the forehead, that's not a sexual experience, right? There's a subjective experience to that. And so part of my job is helping people navigate, like, here are the objective boundaries. This is what we're going to wear. These are the places that we're not going to touch. These are the places, or these are the rules around it. And then beyond that, we have to both be in our integrity. We have to communicate around it. And I'm here to help you do those things. But if something feels a little bit sexual to you, even if it doesn't feel that way to me, we have to divert and do something else. We're going to just adjust slightly. switch up what we're doing so that that experience shifts.
So what body parts don't you touch, and what body parts, starting from your head to toe,
Yeah.
what body parts don't you touch?
Nothing covered by a bikini.
Okay.
We do not touch anything covered by a bikini.
Okay.
That's pretty easy.
Everything else is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. As based on our individual preference, like if someone's like, don't touch my feet, stay away, I'm like, cool, I'm not gonna touch your feet. That's totally fine. Or like, don't touch my hair, or my back is really sensitive, or on my sides, that's too tickly, it doesn't matter what kind of touch, I don't want to do that. So there is absolutely an interpersonal component there where we discuss like, what are your personal boundaries? But our society, it is really, really hard to separate out an experience of sexuality from places that are covered by bikini, right? Like that's just not skills that many of us have, or some of us even believe exist, to separate out sexuality from those areas, right?
How do you do it?
Well, we don't engage in that in a session, so we don't necessarily have to do that. But if someone the best example I can come up with is like, people's experiences of their own body vary from person to person, right? But that objective guideline helps create some bumpers for the bowling lane, right?
So if I had mentioned to you, well, when you come, I want you to come in pajamas to make me comfortable. So you're coming in pajamas?
That's a great example, because there is a minimum required for each individual person's comfort. If a client is going to request what I'm wearing, I typically don't entertain requests for what I'm wearing, because that's not really the purpose or the goal of the session, unless there's there are some exceptions to that. One exception to that is I have clients on the autism spectrum. Their sensory experience could be really specific or really uncomfortable by certain kinds of fabrics. If someone's like, please do not wear wool of any kind because that fabric is too much for my sensory system, then I'd be like, totally fine. That is a clothing request I would entertain, right? But beyond that, if it's just like a preference or like, I think these look great, that's not the purpose.
That's not the purpose of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you meet because I also see that you're a certified cuddle party facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
What is a cuddle party facilitator?
Yeah, so that non-for-profit organization that we were talking about earlier,
Yes,
they train people on how to do those workshops. And so if you have gone through their training program and have been certified, then you can host these events. And I host them. I have a studio that I host them in. I can do in-call sessions, meaning people come to my location, or I can do out-call sessions as well. But honestly, I much prefer people coming to my location because I can
safer.
it's safer, one, and I could just get to control it. Like I can make sure I can control how cleanly it is. I can control the scent, because I often really try to not have strong scents. Some people react differently to different scents, right? I just have a lot of control over the environment. Plus, I find that when people would prefer a cuddle therapist to go to their location, there's so many things. If you imagine going home, like you might look over and like, oh, there's your pile of laundry. Or you might look to another spot and be like, oh, there's some dishes that you haven't done, right? Like in your own space, there's all your to-do lists. And so it's not always conducive to full relaxation and getting out of your day-to-day mindset. But in a new place that I can create a very spa-like atmosphere, they can't do that. So.
What made you be a cuddlist?
Yeah. It's a weird, convoluted, long story. But I was exposed to this work in about 2013, and as soon as I experienced it, I went to a cuddle party, and as soon as I experienced it, I had a really intense emotional reaction. I cried for probably an hour and a half to almost 2 hours, because I had never in my life had the kind of boundaries and consent education that workshop offered, and having a room full of people who cared so much about whether or not I was comfortable, whether or not I really wanted to be there, and gave me permission to just be me in however state that was. Like my emotions weren't going to be too much. My emotions weren't going to be uncomfortable for anyone else. It was overwhelming and awesome.
Give me the room, because right now when I'm
Yeah.
thinking of a cuddle party, I had people say, "Oh, it sounds like a swingers event."
Yeah.
Give me, let my viewers and let me see, what is a cuddle party? Is it candles lit? Are people dressed? Who's around? Give me a consent and let me know exactly what a cuddle party looks like.
Yeah, excellent. So it's whatever the space is, there is typically a we call it cuddle fluff, but there will be an area. I have a bunch of really lovely foam mattresses that I spread out over half of like my living room area. So it's just like this big cushy mat filled with lots of blankets on one side. There is a snack table set up. It's lit with normal overhead lights. Nothing like super harsh, but it's not dimly lit with candles, right? It's just normally lit. There is just general soft music playing in background, like instrumental versions of pop songs or just like general chill music vibes. And when people arrive, there's about a 30-minute arrival, mingle, chat period. Then we do close the door at a specific time, at a certain time, because that's when we're going to start going over the workshop and all the rules of the space. And everyone who's there has to have heard all of them. We can't have people coming in halfway through and they didn't hear rules 1 through 4, right? So once we close the doors, and I don't mean lock them, but just like don't allow any more people in. Then everyone kind of sits in a circle in comfortable clothes. Everyone is fully clothed. You can be in pajamas if you want to. I have attended one of these in onesies before that were funny and silly and delightful. Or people will come in just their street clothes and, casual wear. And for the first hour, it's a workshop. So I'm teaching different communication tools. We do the no exercise that we did at the beginning of this. Everyone turns to the person next to them. You're going to ask a question. You're going to say no. Like we do these exercises. Once that is all done, once we wrap up with the welcome circle and all the rules, then we do a transition exercise. And I am there as the facilitator to help and assist anyone who might need it. But then all the participants, and my cuddle parties are about 20 to 30 people.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Just and that's size limitations. That's like the comfortable amount in the space. But once we do that, then I'm there to assist and kind of watch the room and help. But they can cuddle in ways that feel comfortable for them using the skills that we've just learned.
So I could just maybe walk up to a stranger and say, "Hey, do you mind if I hug you? You mind if I touch your hand?" And you're there to let me know, like, Shawana, don't touch his hand like that. Maybe you should touch it like this.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why the workshop is so important, because we teach all that, right? And
Okay.
so I'm there to, if someone forgets to ask comprehensively in the ways that we've just taught, then I'll be like, "Oh, oops, did you ask for that?" And they'll be like, "Oh crap, I forgot." Like, "Okay, great. Well, just try that again and you're good to go." Or something. The scenario is for me to be a support, but also to make sure everyone understood all of the rules that we set out and is practicing them.
Is it couples? Is it singles? Is it older, young? What race? Is it
Yeah.
every ethnicity? Who is it at your cuddle parties?
Yeah. So I would say the average age is mid 30s to mid 40s. That's kind of the average. I've had a delightful participant who I remember very, very fondly, because I haven't hosted a cuddle party in a long time because of COVID and whatnot, but who was 82, the most like delightful human being ever, and makes me so happy that that person attended cuddle parties and have had people down to 18. It is 18 and over. The whole industry is 18 and over, just by the nature of how we define consent in the United States.
Okay, so every race,
Every
you've had
race,
every race.
every gender expression. We've had people who have differently abled bodies, so sometimes we'll do accommodations for different disabilities. Yeah, all walks of life.
So give me an example.
Mhm.
So let's just say I come and maybe somebody in a wheelchair may feels like I don't get the same love as somebody walking.
Mhm.
Is that Is that what you mean when you say different people with different disabilities?
Yeah.
Okay.
All kinds of people come to these events or this work, and individual sessions. I have a client that I see individually who has degenerative muscle disorder, and so they have a really hard time navigating the world. And getting a lot of access to touch, because really the only access to touch they have are from caregivers, which is very specific. It's not like this comforting friendship, nurturing touch. It is a type of nurturing touch, but just from a caregiver, right? That's specific. But they don't have as much access that maybe someone else might in their life, in their interpersonal life. And so this gives them that outlet to have that sense of what some people refer to as like that sense of normalcy, whereas they may not have that.
Because we don't think about a person that's transitioning. You don't think about a person that maybe came out of the closet and say, I'm gay, or hey, I don't know what I am.
Oh, yeah.
So you see everyone.
Yeah, I've had that happen in session. People come out because it's one of the only places they've felt like they really were not judged. That's one of the commitments that I make to every one of my clients is this is one space in the whole world. I hope you have others, and let's try to find you other spaces in the world where you can have this, but you will never be judged in a session with me.
What do you do to keep yourself going? Because you give a lot of yourself. So what do you do to get it back?
Yeah. The having really strong boundaries around when I'm working and when I'm not, because being an entrepreneur, like you can just work 24/7. Like I imagine lots of people can relate to that.
So this is your only job.
Yeah.
So you make it actually just doing this. So you had a normal job. You came 6 years ago and you say, you know something, I think I found my passion.
Oh yeah, I was in insurance. I worked in a corporate 9-to-5 environment. It was the worst.
You actually quit after that session.
I quit after a year of learning and training. So I did some classes. I did as many trainings as I could possibly get my hands on.
Where do you find these trainings?
I found them online and through. I was very lucky in that one incredible person who was the founder of Cuddlist was in Chicago, Madeline Guanazzo. And so that is one training that I highly, highly recommend. Another training is Cuddle Sanctuary out of Los Angeles. Jean Francois, who is now a friend of mine, has been on the Kardashians, has been on the Dr. Phil show, has been on the Bachelorette, like has put professional cuddling and cuddle therapy more in the mainstream, and I'm so grateful for her. But so took that training in 2015. There's another one out in Portland called Cuddle Up to Me or Certified Cuddlers, and that was the first ever training program for professional cuddlers. It's phenomenal. I highly recommend it.
So did you start, so after this you started your own company, so you actually have kind of branched out, kind of franchised from Cuddlist?
Well, I have a private practice. So all these places will train you and certify you, right? You're not necessarily working for them as a company. You're not an employee. You're a private contractor who's been trained and certified. So my private practice, Chicago Cuddle Therapy, is its own entity, right? Like if you go to like a, I don't know, any kind of doctor who's at a private practice, right? And now I am a part, this year, I am a part owner of Cuddlist now. I went on because they've been there since day one, and I really, really love the mission of that company. So hitched my wagon there.
Now, when I did my last show, how do you say to somebody when somebody may say, oh, that's just some white people stuff,
Right?
Black people don't do that. We don't sit and go meet and cuddle strangers. How do you answer that question?
Makes perfect sense. It is some white people nonsense. I get it. And there is another perspective out there, out of Atlanta. There is an incredible class that I just was in the inaugural group of called Cuddlesage. Cuddlesage is run specifically by Black femmes. They have, it's geared towards anyone who is Black female body. Their entire training program has them at the focus. And it's run by an incredible person named Amina Peterson, who runs the Atlanta Tantra Institute out there, and it's phenomenal. It's incredible. So there are people out there who would say that this shouldn't just be exclusive to accessible by white people. That's some nonsense that white people would get only exclusive access to this.
Yeah, if anybody have any questions, you can give me a call at 708-223-8953 on the Women of Wealth show. Oh, wow, I didn't say call my cell phone. If you can actually call 708-223-8953 if you have any questions. Also, now you stated that one of your companies is a 501c3. So if your company is a 501c3 house, that's saying that most 501c3s is a place to help people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So actually that's under the realm of helping people. You get donations, you actually give back. Would you give back to veterans, or who do you give back to be considered a 501?
Yeah, so that's Cuddle Party, the entity, and I am certified through them, but I don't run it, right? There's a board of directors there, and they do phenomenal work. So they are who they give back to is anyone who is receiving the events that are put out there, because it is a type of therapeutic education. Right, it's boundaries and consent education and giving people access to platonic touch. I will say this: some of my colleagues specialize in and gear their practices towards veterans. So I love that you mentioned that, because that is absolutely something that it is a demographic of Americans that benefits so much from this work. And when my colleagues have gone into VAs and partnered with VAs, the kind of results and the kind of like satisfaction and heart-centric work that they get to do is really powerful. It's really amazing.
Have you guys ever thought about, because my background is different, have you ever thought about even with college students to teach girls? Right now, when you're in high school and you're a senior, you think you are it. Then you leave and go back to the bottom of the barrel and become a freshman in college. They don't know how to say no.
Yeah, so there have been a couple of instances that I know of where people have taken some of this information and given it in a college program, like a lecture or a continuing education, and it's gone over really well. So it's just a work in progress. It's like hopefully something that'll get more traction. I have wanted to do this, and what I am finding is I actually try to gear it towards high school students, because the rate of assault, the rate of that is a really primed moment for them to get comprehensive education around boundaries and consent. And the challenge that I found is that there's a little bit of a catch-22 of like, if you want to debut material in a school, they want to make sure you've been vetted by other schools. So they want a recommendation from another school, but how do you get that unless you've been in one? Right? It's like that's the challenge that I'm currently running into, but I'll figure it out.
Okay. Now I had a few people that emailed me that actually wanted to actually do this. So how much and how do you vet your clients? If you went somewhere, how do I know this is not a person that's trying to kill me when I'm going maybe to their house? Do you go to hotels? Where do you go when you meet a client for the first time? And how do they go about actually being a professional cuddler?
Yeah, so the vetting process and the consultation process is crucial.
Okay.
It is that's one of the reasons why you can technically do this work without training, and I don't recommend it at all. Like I think it not only is it to be a little bit harsh, a bit irresponsible to do this work without training, but you're setting yourself up to get hurt. And I don't want to see anyone hurt ever, period. So that's one of the reasons why programs like Cuddlist, who train their facilitators, are so important. So being safe in this work involves really comprehensive consultations and vetting of your clients. You figure out specific questions to ask. How they answer is really important. All of my consultations are by Zoom, so I can see someone. There's so much you can pick up from people's body language.
From their body language. Right now, I know traffic was bad everywhere with everyone. I'm going to bring my cuddlist back. She's a professional cuddler, so I could get more questions from my audience. But yes, it is a real thing. Yes, she actually quit her job and became a full-time professional cuddler. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Women of Wealth show on Intellectual Radio. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Thank you.
You said you love me. Lately I've been feeling like that was just a lie. Yeah.